The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, everyone here. This time from the United States. I arrived last night, and so if I miss a few steps along the way, it's just the jet lag. At least we're all here together, and we will be focusing on the science of triangles and various centers which triangulate with each other, and we'll continue that for a while. I think quite soon, though, we're coming up to the point where the conference will be taking over, and temporarily we will have to discontinue our work in these webinars and broadcasts for a little while, unless I can find somebody else to, sort of continue them while I'm occupied and while Tuija is occupied. Okay, there's a bit of a, I'm in some sort of little strange room here, and the general yellowish cast, it's not as bad as it looks, So everything is okay. Let's have a little alignment, everybody. Yeah, glad to see you here. Yeah, few under circumstances. So a little alignment. And the important thing is that we get the sense of ourselves as a soul-infused personality to a certain extent. The complete fusion process really is occurring just before the fourth initiation, so obviously we're not there, but to various degrees, the energy of the soul, which is unusual compared with what we are usually occupied with personality, will be present. And it will unify us into one field of consciousness. And the group itself can begin to attract the downflow of higher energy, knowledge, love, wisdom, sacrifice, will. The group can become a magnetic attractor for those higher energies that we talk about quite a bit, but do we really know what they are from firsthand experience? So our purpose today is to explore this, some of the wider reaches of the science of triangles and the esoteric relationships between various points which are national, planetary, solar systemic, and even cosmic. When we're talking about a triangle like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, that's really a cosmic triangle, a triangle between constellations. And of course, we could take it further, but there's no point really to do so. I think we have to stay within the boundaries of our local one about whom naught may be said, while still realizing there are other possibilities. For instance, if we were to look at this map, our little one about whom not may be said, as far as I can understand, is this green triangle. And so you can see that there's, in our local space, is it an arm of a galaxy or much less? There are considered to be 48 others, and 7 of these super beings that are all going to be triangulated in the same way that the 7 rays can be triangulated. And then on until we reach some kind of situation which is really cosmic, as we see here in this parabrahmic diagram. It's taking us up very high, and of course it's not a very articulated map, but it gives you an idea of ascending. And Parabrahm is being used in various ways. Usually what Parabrahm or Parabrahman is the absolute, but it's not being used that way here. Maybe it's being used to indicate the universal logos, but even so, the map is cut very short. There's no way to describe all these things, nor is there a necessity to do so, except we can understand that the possibility of triangulating really ascends to a very high level. He's calling these cosmic planes, and normally the only kind of this could be a map of cosmic planes in which each one of these is let's see if I can go here. Yeah, that each one of these is actually one of these, like cosmic astral, cosmic mental, or it's possible that this is so inclusive, this type of cosmic plane, that each one of them includes an entire, the entire map. So how far this really extends, we cannot tell, except we do know from DK's quotation from the old commentary that there are 10 dimensions to cosmos. And we're just dealing with some of the very earliest dimensions. And beyond that, things which one day we will know, and even the masters don't know now, and even the planetary logo I do not know. We have a vast, though finite, universe, and the principle of triangulation is working all the way through it. The subject, the object, and the relationship between. The perceiver, the perceived, and the perceiving. The spirit, the object, and the consciousness. There are many, many names for these things, and basically what we want to do is be practical about it and realize that if we begin right here, this work between soul-infused personalities, we are doing something of value to spiritualize the etheric body of the planet. Maybe in a way that's enough to know, but you know how the second ray is. The heights of attainment in terms of such knowledge are never considered enough. At least that's how DK describes it. If we go to, I'll show you what I mean. Maybe I've shown you this before and you know all about it, but it doesn't hurt to see it again. And this is the zoom, and I'll just put in, let's say, 150 there. And it would be in Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1. And right around page 202, something of that nature. Pretty close. And you'll see why we continue in the manner of DK to look for things that are, well, quite abstruse. This is the opening of it. And it says, the student on this ray is ever unsatisfied with his highest attainments. I'm sure, in a way, he's speaking of himself. No matter how great his knowledge, his mind is still fixed on the unknown, the beyond, and on the heights as yet unscaled. So that comes in right here on page 203, and I think it's a very good way of understanding the third aspect of the second ray. Basically, with Master DK, we're dealing with a pretty strong combination of the second ray and the third ray. And I think that this particular sentence is what is behind him being considered the most learned of the masters, at least the masters on our earth and in our local and present hierarchy. Just like to welcome Anne, Annette, Antoinette, Catherine, Christopher, George, Helen, and Joe, who's usually on side right, is holding us together on side left. John, Karen, Catherine, Carrie, Lona, Mariana, Marissa, Mariut, Martha, Mary, Natni, and Nienka, Tia, Vera, Walter, Winnie, Zenaidi, and Veronica. And over here on the staff side, we have BL and Joe, and Michael, Stacy, and Tuija. And I'm there with you as well. So let's see if we can fulfill our function, which is somehow to extend our abstract mind into the higher reaches of things and try to see the divine patterns. Not all of them, of course, will appear. This is called the ray of the divine pattern and the ray of detailed unity, the second ray. Different names of the ray refer to different types. There's the wisdom type, pretty pure along the Buddha line, the love type, pure along the Christ line, and the detailed unity type, the divine pattern along the line that the Tibetan is presenting here. A bridge, I think, between the third ray and the second. Now, we've been looking at various kingdoms and their relationship to the planetary centers. So, Shambhala, the head center, where the energy of life and synthesis is found, hierarchy, the heart center, connected with the sixth root race, before long to appear and last 10 million years. The Aryan race has been very short compared to that. And, South America and Brazil will be very important during that period. Love is the goal, not will. And then we've been involved with humanity. Although, we're beginning to make our way into the kingdom of souls and into the kingdom of planetary lives gradually. And here the Tibetan is considering humanity to be the Ajna center. Well, certainly what we hear is that the higher aspects of humanity who are involved in serving, as the new group of world servers is, that they represent the Ajna center. But sometimes he generalizes and he says that for us, intuition is the goal. That makes a lot of sense. The Ajna center is not only connected with the integration of the personality, it is connected with the spiritual triad as well. And interestingly, with the sign Libra, kind of a triangle is there, the fulcrum point, and then the two opposing sides, and that is the spiritual triad. So, there comes a point where the Ajna is so complete that it can really draw upon triadal understanding. And let's not forget that there's a certain point at which the monad itself settles in the center of the brain, in the etheric area there, and works through the ajna center. So a lot of these things are technicalities which will be involved in the new healing and the new medical approaches, and certainly every master who is supervising the development of a student has to know these things so there is safety for the student. We wouldn't dare undertake it ourselves. There are just all kinds of traps, and we don't know the right progression. As a matter of fact, in the ascent of the energies in any human being, aspiring human being, according to the monadic ray, different lines of elevation have to be followed. Different areas of each triangle within the system have to be activated first, second, and third. And that will depend upon the monadic ray. It's something that we cannot see. The master can see this and will direct us accordingly. So these are the higher centers: Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity. We've talked a lot about them and about the triangle, which is being fully developed so that there is a reciprocal exchange between Shambhala and hierarchy, Shambhala and humanity and hierarchy. And it goes both ways, and we're not there yet. But we're developing that kind of reciprocity between those three centers, which is a bit like having the sort of third degree triangle of the center at the top of the head, the crown center, the Ajna center, and the Alta Major center. In this particular case, if you wanted to look at it, probably the hierarchy would be the relation between it. It would be the Ajna center, and the Alta Major center would be humanity with Shambhala at the top of the head. There's a lot of intricacy in the way these centers work, and it's really true that fools rush in where angels fear to tread. We're blind and we want it fast, so we make big mistakes which can set us back a long time. So the soul is not the center. The monad is not the center. Instead, it's for humanity, it's the personality, and focused on the fourth subplane of the mental plane. So much of what we do as a human being is focused right here on the fourth subplane of the mental plane. That is the seat of the mental unit, which has been growing up for a long time, even while we were in the animal kingdom, and which is the very center of personality. So, the number 4 is connected with personality, right? So you have your etheric physical, you have your astral, and you have your lower mental, plus the personality synthesis of them. The number 4 and real direction of the personality is occurring from this fourth subplane. Now, our job is to build this triangular antikarana, which you will recognize as a triangle from this. The antikarana is triangular, and here it is. This is our task to build. And basically, the very first step is learning how to bring in some degree of soul infusion and to work from the mental unit, the mind held steady in the light of the soul and towards the soul. And then he doesn't really show us how to work with this second part of the triangle. What he gives is basically here the direct methods using the words of power. The antikarana is a triangle. And eventually we'll be able to handle all of its aspects. Let's just say that from either this line of approach or this line of approach, we can find the method of accessing the spiritual triad. And that's what we have to learn how to do. And that will begin to put us into the world where the masters focus their consciousness. And we will be dealing with the triangular lives, the triadal lives, and their symbol is the triangle and the fleur de lis, the French three-fold flower. And the way you see that is by going over here. And if I make this just a little bigger, you will see that the triple flowers are the lives that control the three aspects of the spiritual triad. Their energy is the energy of knowledge, Jnana Shakti, the force of mind. Saturn rules everything, and especially from the atmic plane, which is the height of the triad. So basically, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect with a higher aspect of ourselves, which certainly does exist, and from which we have been sort of cut off, or in relation to which we remain undeveloped. And all the work that DK is having us do is not only to connect with this sheath of the soul, this causal body, and its type of accumulated consciousness from vast experience, but to connect with something that is more in the nature of the monad and the planetary logos and the triad that comes forth from that. We have to put the two parts of it together. In a certain way, all of this comes from the planetary logos, and all of this down here comes from our labors within the quarries of the human kingdom, where we are mining, cutting the rocks to build the temple, and shaping the rocks, and the so-called rough ashlar and the polished ashlar, until they can make a beautiful temple, which eventually will be destroyed. So this is our task over millions and millions of years. And when we start to work with the triangles, we are entering that realm of spirituality where the square cannot enter. And just as our planet is in the process of moving from a square to a triangular formation, so are we. So are we. Now, in terms of a little bit of reading, take notes about what might be of interest to you, or if your mind is stimulated in some other area, and that's okay too, on the basis of what is said, then make note of that, and then we can have a little bit of an exchange. Thousands of years of study will be required. And you can understand that someone like the Tibetan is the product of thousands of years of intensive study. That's his particular ability. And, a lot of us are on the second ray because we are attracted to the Tibetan as a teacher, and that magnetism works in that way. And so the right kind of study, the right kind of meditation, and the application in service, another triangle, meditation, first ray study, second ray service, third ray, these are required of us over the years. So we've reached now the point where we're talking about the animal kingdom. DK says a few things. In this particular tabulation, he associates the animal kingdom with the throat center and humanity with the ajna center. Now, I think that's the way it's supposed to be before long. Sometimes we marvel at the fact that a dog is singing or some domestic animal is somehow talking, and we wonder at what a parrot is really doing. The throat center is being developed within the animal kingdom. So that fits, and we humans are becoming more than just thinkers. We're becoming divine visionaries through the ajna center. The animal kingdom, being the third, is naturally associated with the third ray and with the third root race, which is the Lemurian root race, and it is the race in which animal man without individualization became animal man with individualization, and eventually became true man. So the great transition at which a major initial initiation of our planetary logos was occurring in the Lemurian times, when in fact we began to enter the human kingdom was created in the fourth scheme, and the fourth chain, especially the fourth chain. And always the goal is what's important. And there is some mind demonstrated in the animal kingdom, certainly, but it's unconscious mind, and intellect is the goal, a deliberate consciousness. Now we just marvel at these stories of types of animals that are close to individualization and do things which are, we say almost human. I mean, really, they would be human. We read of the the orcas protecting divers from sharks, and we read of other animals that form relationships with the human being, and it seems that there is a moving into a higher kingdom of nature. And of course, when we talk about the third ray, we also have to think about the third plane from below, which is the fifth plane. So individualization will involve not only the third ray, but the fifth ray from the solar angels, the implantation of the spark of mind, or an extension of the solar angel into the mental unit of animal man. There's many connections here between the threes and the six. He tells us, watch for the ones related to two, the twos related to four, the threes related to sixes, and so forth. It's a very active kingdom, and the principle of mobility has been gained over that of the plant. So there maybe are some plants that have a little incipient beginning mobility, but generally they are planted, okay? So this ray of activity is very, very strong in the animal kingdom. Their mobility is much more even than the human kingdom in terms of the vehicle. They can run faster, they can climb trees, they can fly, they can do all kinds of things that we cannot do with our particular vehicle. And it's all an example of the third ray. And they thrive on our particular planet with its third ray personality. So the abundance of animal life is really tremendous. He talks about the energy of illumination and creating in the light. This is all the destiny of the animal kingdom. 4 centers are functioning, and well, it's, the throat definitely is under development. The heart center seems in most to be functioning in most of the kingdoms. The solar plexus, certainly. Now there's where 2 3s make a 6. The solar plexus is always connected with the 6th ray, and we have that instinctual emotionality within the animal kingdom. The domestic animals, they are having states of consciousness that are very much, emotional states that are very much like the human. And I was reading that, what kind of bear is it? Is it a honey bear or something like that? That mimics quite accurately the facial expressions of a human being or of the other animals that it's with. It has this ability to somehow come en rapport and demonstrate this in the face. And of course, the sacral center is very strong. It's the third kingdom in nature, yes. Now, we have to think about the base of the spine center for everything, because basically that's what keeps you anchored. That's what keeps you in the state of vitality that allows you to have a vehicle on the physical plane. Whether it's a man, an animal, a plant, and then certainly the mineral kingdom. So although this base of the spine is not very developed and really does not become truly developed until mastership in the human kingdom. It's the fifth initiation at which the base of the spine is fully unfolded. It is active in a subsidiary way, otherwise we could not remain in incarnation. So, you know, at least the hypothesis for the moment is that while the head center is not really active and the ajna center is not really active, I mean, you know, all centers are active to a degree because they have to sustain the life of the animal vehicle. It's basically the throat which is being developed along with intelligence. The heart center is definitely there, as it is in so many cases. The solar plexus is extremely active. Now think about this. This is a kingdom ruled by Mars. Mars is a sixth-ray planet. The solar plexus is the sixth-ray center. And we're having to deal very much with animals, oftentimes with their emotional state, if they are of a certain caliber. If you're dealing with a starfish, it's maybe not the same, or a worm, or, you know, a flatworm or something like that. We're not dealing with the emotional kingdom. But as we get more and more towards humanity, the solar plexus becomes more important. And then the sacral center for all the different methods of reproduction. So, like I say, this is a different kind of tabulation, and it seems really to contradict some of the other things that he has said. But when we remember perhaps that when he says, when you find contradictions, apparent contradictions, look for the problem in the realm of timing. When does this refer to? So, you know, somehow we're able, under the law of mutation, to get always a different perspective depending on the time. Now, any particular center will serve, like the human being, the animal kingdom, whatever. The humanity will one day be a heart center. Now it's not. It's something lower. It's an ajna center. It's the throat center. And before that, it used to be something lower still. So under the law of mutation, the different groupings rise in the hierarchies and perform different functions. Now here is the solar plexus center. Interesting that it's connected with the vegetable kingdom and the sixth ray and with the fourth root race. We oftentimes read of man being the saptaparna, or the seven-leaved plant. So this is corresponding to the path of probation and instinct. I've asked the question here, does instinct involve movement? Well, certain transitional forms. DK speaks vaguely of certain transitional forms between mineral and vegetable, between vegetable and animal, between animal and human, that have transitional characteristics. But anyway, instinct appears to be the goal here. This is the only kingdom with three rays really operative. The second ray for fragrance, the fourth ray for color, the sixth ray for the orientation of the plant and its stem, usually towards the sun. The energy of aspiration is found here, as you would expect, under the sixth ray, and its goal is the unfoldment of sensitivity. And we do know that plants are sensitive and they do recoil from certain environmental factors. We even have learned, someone was bringing this up the other day, through the work of the Indian physicist, Bose is his name, that there is such a thing in the mineral kingdom as well. And he talks about the fatigue of metals and their very low type of consciousness. So the animals can approach, they can recoil, but it's not as fast in the vegetable kingdom. Three centers are functioning in the vegetable kingdom, and we can maybe make a speculation as to what they are. and there's a focal point of psychic response. No third ray mobility, no throat center. Yet that comes to life in the animal kingdom. So probably the heart, the solar plexus, and for reproduction, the sacral center, along with the base of the spine being that which allows the anchoring process. Really, the most advanced of all of the kingdoms right now, relatively speaking, is the vegetable kingdom. So what kind of animality they will become, what kind of human they will become, it will be more advanced than what we have now, because 3 rays rule there, wherefore in general it's only 2 rays for the other kingdoms. And somewhere he talks about, you know, what they are, probably in those summaries that you can find in the back of Esoteric Psychology Volume 1. Okay, it's the second kingdom in nature. Yeah, okay, the second mastership, second kingdom in nature. And the kingdom that displays so much beauty, but no sound per se, except maybe of a subtle kind. It doesn't have a voice. It doesn't have a throat center. The animal kingdom, yes, they have the voice, maybe sometimes very crude, but sometimes not crude, as in the case of the orcas and the whale sounds, you know, just extraordinarily beautiful, actually. And of course, humanity has developed the voice to a great extent, and eventually that will give over into a visual language, which will be more like a telepathic ideographic language, which at present we call sensar, and which is the possession of the kingdom of souls, those who are in the next kingdom. Now here we have kind of an intervention. The sacral center is given to the Deva evolution. Now, in a way that is true, and there are certainly higher Devas that contain all the chakras themselves. And it's connected here with the 7th ray. Usually, if you turn to page 517 of astrology book, you will see that it's Uranus on the 7th ray, which rules the sacral center, and it's the form-producing ray. And we may say also that the moon has a lot to do with it, and Mars does as well. It's what root race is it correlated with? It says the second root race. The second root race was an unconscious root race, and it was called the Hyperborean race, and the Adamic race came still earlier. Responsiveness is the goal, and we hear about all the amazing sensitivity of the Devas, not just the lower Devas that are learning it, but the higher Devas are extremely sensitive. So there's all different degrees of responsiveness in this Deva kingdom. That kind of acute sensitivity is going to be taught to man by the Devas that can teach it during the Aquarian age, and as the Buddhic factors develop. Now, on the astral plane, there's oftentimes, he tells us, a kind of warfare that operates between man and Devas, but not on the Buddhic plane. There, that is the plane of harmony, and there's going to be so much education going on there. And of course, humanity is, in a way, teaching the Devas how to destroy, and the Devas are teaching humanity how to build. Now, that doesn't mean there are not first-rate Devas. Indeed, there are, but we're just talking about the general tendency of the entire kingdom. So that acute sensitivity has to be taught to man. And it will be very much the task of Aquarius. It is connected with the birds, and the birds are a transitional kingdom for Devas who are on their way to becoming human. We have here the energy of magnetism, that which holds in coherence, and the power to build. And he tells us here which are the centers that are actually functioning. Two centers are functioning, the heart and the sacral center. Sacral is the building center, and as always, the heart is somehow holding some kind of coherence and vitalization in the whole process. But there is another factor called the eye of God, and it's not necessarily in the head, it can be above the head. We have some references and compilations on the eye of God, the different kinds of eyes, and it would be worth going over them for topical study. It's a focal point of vibratory response to the eye of God. So the devas are ruled by the eye, and they're ruled by the voice, and they're also ruled and directed by symbol, okay? But you have to use the eye to see that, and the voice can command. So both the, and what is it said about the devas? That they see, sound, and hear color. And there are some human beings on the fourth ray who have this kind of synesthesia, if you will, and they're able to unite the senses in different from the customary ways that we are used to. So the eye and the voice command the devas, and they are related to the third aspect of the all-seeing eye. Okay. All right. Excuse me. So, you know, of course, there are 6th-degree devas, 7th-degree devas, 8th and 9th degree. They have all the chakras developed. So we cannot only speak of them. We're speaking of them in the lower, in their lower brackets when we just talk about two centers. Matter of fact, one of the things that I remember is that DK talked about the relationship between a solar angel and a man. And from the heart center of a solar angel came a stream of energy which anchored in the brain of man. So the chakra systems of the devas are also to be studied. We cannot imagine that the different forms of life do not have these vortices of energy of a particular quality, and that they do not relate to others through these vortices. They do, in fact. Okay, I think there's one more here, and it is, and of course, naturally, you're going to form different triangles between these. You know, there is an obvious triangle between the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdom. And probably if we work the devas into that, we will find, you know, vegetable and Devic kingdom, and probably the animal kingdom. There's different ways to create triangles. Okay. My point here was also that devas can become human, but they do not need to become so. But animals, plants, and minerals are all on their way to becoming human because humanity is their microcosm. So in other words, it's possible for devas not to have to, of course, look, Tuija is the expert on this. I'm just saying a little bit about it. It's possible that the devas can advance to the degree of a human being without having to go through the human kingdom for individualization. They have their own method of individualization, and they remain devas. And a human being can switch to the deva kingdom also. Maybe it's not so usual, but it can happen. So some just remain in their own parallel track, and others cross over according to their function. The final center is the base of the spine, and as you would suspect, it's related to the mineral kingdom. But, you know, normally at the base of the spine, we find the first ray, but in this tabulation, we find the fourth ray. And in a way, you know, if you're looking for sub-diaphragmatic chakras, chakras below the diaphragm, we basically have the solar plexus, the spleen, the sacral center, and the base of the spine. Hence, maybe the fourth ray. Now, its full development will be in the 7th root race, but of course it has some kind of connection with the first root race. Synthesis is the goal. So what type of synthesis? Well, we all know that the minerals begin from the hydrogen atom, and the mineral kingdom is all one substance, basically. We call that substance in the secret doctrine protyle. Protyle. In the old books, they called this type of matter out of which all things are made as protyle. So this is the energy of foundational synthesis. And you know, the one in the 7 and the 1 are reversed in a certain sense. And the 7th root race will bring this synthesis to fruition. But at the same time, the first root race had kind of a foundational basis related to the energy at the base of the spine. That was the Adamic root race. And the 4th root race has that as well, because in a way, we are living stones, you know, and the minerals are called fiery stones. So in other words, the beings from Vulcan are called fiery stones, and we human beings are called living stones, and that is our relationship to the mineral kingdom. And so is Aquarius related definitely to the mineral kingdom. And during this age of Aquarius, in which we've been entering for a couple of 100 years here, there's a tremendous energy released from the mineral kingdom, and all of modern warfare and the driving of our energy systems is coming from the power of the atom. So eventually there will be a completeness here, and it will be in the 7th root race. Now, hopefully we will not be, hopefully we will have found a way to complete before that time. When all centers are functioning as one, that is the final synthesis, and a tremendous power will be released. So, okay, it's the focal point of evolution and the first kingdom in nature. So notice how he takes the very advanced development in relation to the mineral kingdom, and then also the very foundational initial development. We need this kind of vitality, and stored within the mineral kingdom is the vitality which can drive everything, and which the 5th ray types will help us release, and it will release the man, the human being, into a new type of life in which the soul can really be cultivated. So basically, you've got what we've just gone over. We have the animal kingdom, 4 centers, the vegetable kingdom, 3 centers, the Deva kingdom, 2 centers, and the mineral kingdom, the base of the spine, 1 center. Okay, well, you know, it's quite a, I think I just would like to turn to this. I'd like to turn to the back of page 400, Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1. And if you're not aware of it, just to help to see what's really there. Compilation after compilation, which we can study and get a different perspective upon. So this is over here, Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1. And let's just say I go to page 400, something like that. Okay, and there's a lot of information in Psychology 1, even though the most applicable individual psychology is found in Psychology 2. This ray of the ego is very interesting. Okay, and he begins with the ray of our planetary logo. So I just want to point these things out. Some tabulations on the rays beginning page 410. Here are the rays that are in manifestation at this time. He says ray 1 is not. It is in a way, but it's not in a way. And ray 6 is passing out. So 5 rays are really in manifestation. The ray methods of teaching truth, higher and lower expression, just so you'll know where to look. Discipleship and the rays, and we see the kind of human individual that is made out of these. The first ray type becomes the occultist, and the second ray type, the true psychic, and the third ray type, the true magician, as contrasted to the ritualist, and so forth. The rays of the four kingdoms. Notice here, the vegetable kingdom, notice it's the only kingdom with a triangle, 2, 4, and 6. Everything else, 7, 1, 4, 5. For the human kingdom, 4th ray soul, 5th ray personality. The soul, 5 and 2, just like the solar angels and so forth. Only 2 rays per kingdom. And notice that the solar kingdom is the exact reverse of the mineral kingdom. And the planetary kingdom is the exact reverse of the animal kingdom. So you can find numerical relationships there that are very interesting. The different ray influences here in the different kingdoms and other correspondences, you see, things that are brought together in a very concentrated form so we can study them. And they will offer different perspectives than the perspective that we might be used to. Notice here the 7th ray controls the mineral kingdom, 6th the vegetable, 5th the animal, see? And what we were just reading related it to the 3rd ray, 4th the human kingdom, and so forth. Anyway, it's worth going here to see how he has collected all of this information in a way that is very cogent, very concentrated. I don't know how many of you have made your way through these compilations and 21 methods of stimulation and various mantrams. It's a treasure house. It's a treasure house to go into from page 410 of Esoteric Psychology Volume 1. It's just a treasure, And here, different names in relation to the rays and the senses. So do that. I'm not having time now to do that here, but the purpose of all of it is given in these brief little titles. You say, but he said something different later. Yeah, he says I did, except that they differ in terms of time. So, what do you want to be? Do you want to be the 2nd ray type and have an understanding of God, or just a desire for God under the 6th ray? All right. Now, I think that's enough for that. And the next time that we get together, okay. As a matter of fact, I think I'll just bring it down here. We only really did a page, but then it's so very, very concentrated, So I'll do this so I don't get lost next time. The easiest thing in the world is to get lost here. And so this is the end of number 35, Science of Triangles. And I think we just went from page 455, basically just one page, I think. Something like that. Does anybody, we have some interesting things coming. Okay, 456 is where we are. And today is the 27th. We had to skip sometimes because we had such a powerful Aries Easter kind of celebrations. And today is the 27th. And we're going to begin with number 36. And it will be by the 3rd of April. Okay. And then we'll know where we are. And I'm not sure whether it'll be evening. This is evening, so it'll probably be morning. All right. Right. That's it. All right. Now, your thoughts. Your thoughts, and we can begin over here while you're thinking about what you might want to talk about. Is there anybody on staff that would like to say anything at this point?
A couple of housekeeping things. End of number 35, academic reading 455 through 456, and space.
There we go.
and reading page 456 below.
Thank you. Michael, you have a little seventh ray. Thank you very much.
I do.
Yeah.
And then you've got 3 April 19, question 19.
Okay, so it's April 2009. Okay.
19, and you can take out the question 19 following.
Okay, because in fact, that's when it's supposed to be, unless we decide it has to be something else. Thank you for...
You've got two 19s together.
Oh, do I? Ah, right. Thank you. Additions and corrections. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you. We passed the test. All right. Thank you. Okay. Any thoughts that you would like to review the kingdoms of nature, the chakras available, the chakras towards which we are moving, the chakras which we are presently displaying? Like, for instance, with humanity, wouldn't you say that humanity, being a very active, vocal, language-oriented kingdom, is using the throat center greatly, but that its movement is towards this synthetic vision of the ajna center, which will reveal that which the intuition has to reveal far more than the throat center will. In other words, look, we begin with ray 5 here at the ajna center, but at a certain, and that's Venus, but at a certain point, ray 4 with Mercury takes over here, and the fourth ray, Mercury at the ajna center, connects with what plane? The fourth plane, the Buddhic plane, ruled by Mercury, Scorpio, the fourth ray. In other words, the intuition comes in. In other words, we are becoming an intuitive race in the upper brackets of the race. So it will take a while, but people like ourselves are expected to be examples of Manas Buddhi or Buddhi Manas, and not just hard-headed intellectualism. I mean, it's good, you know, but you need the intellectual foundation, but then you also need pure reason rather than just reasoning, and that is a higher function of Mercury, which will be found here at the ajna center. So that's our goal. We have a chakra that's our goal, and we have a chakra that is our usual method of expression, and we have a chakra where we've been before and left behind. And that's always the way it is, the past, present, and future, apparently. Even though it's all in the eternal now, for practical purposes, it's the past, present, and future. Okay.
Michael, this discussion on the chakras or the centers has to do essentially with the planetary logos, and yet they can be related through the law of correspondence with the centers within each human unit. It can be related in another way with the solar systemic centers, perhaps. And we can learn about ourselves, we can learn about our planet, we can learn about the system through those correspondences.
Yep, and that's really the purpose of it. You know, he says, always study the law of analogy, which is the great revelatory law in our universe. And if you want to be more exact about the law of analogy, then you go into this more detailed form of it, which is called the law of correspondences. And so, you know, basically what does that do? It fills in blank areas. He may have never said this or never said that, but if you can generalize from a system which has been described, you can generalize to a system which has not been described. And you can go from below to above and from above to below, both ways. So what we're trying to do, you know, right now we have a jigsaw puzzle. Let's just call it our knowledge of planetary, systemic, and local cosmic relationships. And there's a lot of missing pieces. But those missing pieces can often be found through the law of analogy and correspondences. Now, sometimes those laws don't hold up with precision, you know, because we just don't know enough and we get the general idea. But usually it is sufficient to help us fill in the blank spaces. Now, somewhere in Cosmic Fire, he compares, and if you read the stuff that I've written on those pages, he compares the solar atom, the planetary atom, the human atom, and the atom of substance, one after another in a parallel manner. And you begin to see how you can really learn from each one of the columns regarding something in another column which may be somewhat vague. So I know it's a very detailed study. I've tried to go into detail on it earlier, maybe 4 or 5 years earlier when I was doing that. And, you know, I hope that it's helpful. If anybody really wants to probe into it, that's where to go. Now, you know, you could take it beyond. You could say, well, we've got our solar system. What about our local constellation called the 7 solar systems, of which ours is one? Okay, now you've got that. Well, what about our chakric system in the one about whom naught may be said? Where are we a heart center? Our whole solar system is a heart center in a local cosmic logos, but what is the place of that cosmic logos? And that cosmic logos is not yet sacred the way Sirius is sacred. So the Sirian system, some call it a constellation, is above the cosmic logoic diaphragm, if you will. It's going to be found up here somewhere, or up here. The Sirian system will be found there, but not our Earth. We are sub-diaphragmatic. And in other, I shouldn't have said Earth, not our local cosmic logos, in which our sun is a heart center. We are below the diaphragm. We're either like a solar plexus, I think that's what we are, or we're like a sacral center, and there's some hints about that too. And we're not the base of the spine because Draco and the Southern Cross seem to occupy that particular placement. So it's all about figuring out how things are related to each other. That's the whole study here. It's the science of relationships in all of its various divisions. And it takes a long time to fill in that jigsaw puzzle, but if you study the law of analogy and the more detailed law of correspondences, it goes faster. Let's just say it that way. Okay. All right. So your thoughts, anybody? Your thoughts about this or other related factors related to occultism? Just by the way, I had an interesting thing happen. We were filling out our conference at a glance, and you should be getting that pretty soon. You'll see all the things that are going on at this next third-rate conference, which is focusing on the divine mind, or the mind of God, you know. And I used the word occult, and someone called me on that and said, well, look, you know, you're down here in the Bible Belt. Well, it wasn't, not really the Bible Belt, and you use the word occult, so we could get in a lot of trouble. And it just reminded me that what I usually do is talk about spiritual occultism, or, you know, the occult from a spiritual perspective. I add that descriptor onto it so that people do not mistake us for dealing with, you know, all those ugly and useless things that usually go under the name occult. So I and I recommend it to you. You know, what are you studying? Well, esotericism, or sometimes we call it spiritual occultism. Oh, well, why do you call it spiritual occultism? Well, because it has to do with the higher reaches of human nature, and not with all those ugly factors that usually go by the name of occult, having to do with the devil and demons and, you know, orcs and things that are, you know, not very pleasant. Anyway, sometimes you may have to speak to somebody about that, and that's how I recommend that you proceed. Okay, are there any?
Karen.
Here we do have something here.
Karen's hand is raised.
Very good. Okay, and I'll be right there, Karen. And there you go, Karen. Go ahead.
Yes. You said that the animal kingdom the vegetable kingdom is the most advanced of all the kingdoms, and that it has 3 rays and that it has a triangle. but I am still not clear as to why it is the most advanced of all the kingdoms.
It's namely because it is the most unfolded and is actually expressing three qualities simultaneously, where all these other kingdoms are expressing only two. So basically, that is the vegetable kingdom. And I'm just trying to get back there, to where oh, those are beautiful things. I mean, there's some wonderful stuff here. Let's see, I just got to get back to, there it is. Okay, there it is, and you see it. So basically, there is a kind of monadic expression, a kind of a soul expression, and a kind of you just have to take these loosely. The three aspects are being expressed, and it's the only kingdom in which three qualities are operative simultaneously, and it has brought this kingdom to points of development which have never been reached by the other kingdoms when they were at that stage, nor will be reached by them given the rays that they have. So magnetism, which is, the fragrance, perfume, magnetism, color or harmony a harmony of color, and growth towards the light, which is sixth ray. In other words, it's just special in terms of the infusion of three simultaneous qualities, and in terms of the unfoldment of these different factors within the kingdom itself. I mean, let's just say that if the masters were to get the assent of a human being, it wouldn't be necessarily very pleasant.
Yes.
And in terms of color, well, we don't have that, and maybe some growth towards the light. In other words, some very beautiful factors are operating here on the life side of things in the vegetable kingdom, and that's really all I can say about it. Somewhere he says pretty much what I'm saying right now, and maybe there are a few more things, so it could be research. But it is interesting, isn't it? You look at 7 kingdoms, and only one of them, has 3 rays expressing. Only one.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I've heard that stated many times that it is the most advanced, but I didn't have that clarity. So thank you.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. See, we're supposed to actually become the Saptaparna. We're supposed to become the man plant. And we're supposed to unfold in that way. And we come a little bit close to it, don't we? When on the higher mental plane, we unfold as a lotus unfolds, or maybe in Christian terminology as a rose. But somehow there's a great ideal regarding consciousness in terms of our unfoldment. So what the vegetable kingdom has achieved, we are in our higher reaches of expression trying to achieve. And, so let's just see I can imagine that as this kingdom advances through the different levels, it's going to show very great and beautiful qualities which others have not been able to do. But that will take time, of course, to see. This is by the way, this is a very good little tabulation. Look at that. I mean, there's something here, in all of these words: instinct, domesticity, experience. And notice how it says intellect, ray 4 is more than experience, but the personality of man is ray 5, but it's supposed to be ray 4 eventually, and it's soul ray 2. And then, here's the 2 and the 5 together, which makes so much sense in terms of the Manasaputras, the divine sons of mind, the mind-born sons, what a solar angel really is. Of course, it's less than a solar angel in a way, because the kingdom of souls is not the 5th grade of hierarchy. That's already a more advanced hierarchy. You can still be human and be a member of the kingdom of souls. And once you enter, however, the planetary kingdom, you are no longer human. They are no longer men, as are the masters, it is said. In other words, the master is the apex of being human. It's the 5-pointed star. Once you become the 6-pointed star, you've entered the monadic area of expression, and you're a member of the planetary kingdom, albeit at a relatively low level. As far as the solar kingdom goes, well, obviously Sanat Kumara is a member of the solar kingdom. And look at this: universal mind, will, and synthetic ritual. And when we're talking about the daily ritual of Sanat Kumara, you remember reading that, don't you, Karen? About how the colors are breaking on the shore and all that, Beautiful description, right? Of the synthetic daily ritual of Sanat Kumara. That's what they are able to achieve. And he says, you think this is a bunch of symbolism. It's not. It's factual. So, all going down here from radiation and power, albeit latent in the mineral kingdom, it develops into these huge abilities by the time we reach the solar kingdom. And I guess, the Christ is a mere beginner in the area of the solar kingdom, I would say, and maybe as a member of the planetary kingdom. So, our masters are not really fit yet to be members of the solar kingdom. But it's really interesting to see these 7 kingdoms, and only the vegetable kingdom has all of the second ray line included. So we'll hang out. We'll see what it looks like. Okay, as it develops.
Helen and then Anne Veronica posted questions, and then after that, Mary raised her hand.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so Helen, do the ray numbers of our vehicles through the law of correspondence connect us to the energy of the same numbers of the other kingdoms? I would say the general answer is yes. I would say that is a fact. I haven't really thought it through yet, but we have give an example. Okay, we have this 4th ray soul of humanity, and of 4th ray types we often say, what a colorful person, we say. You see, the whole idea of how you handle color and its harmony or its discord is a kind of connection there. When it comes to, let's see, here, maybe we can say the animal kingdom is, how your dog looks up at you, or your cat or your dog or whatever. They are always standing on their hind legs to try to reach your height. This connects with this growth towards the light of the plants. The stalks are oriented in a certain way. So, unless you are an accepted disciple and you know that to be the case, it is without question that the physical body will be ruled by the 3rd or 7th ray, the emotions by the 2nd or 6th ray, and the mind by 1, 4, and 5. And then you can trace the connections here with these other kingdoms and see if they operate. Certainly the power of the mind is there for the 1st ray type. The the excitement and intensity is there for the 6th ray type. I would say just draw the lines and see what you can find in terms of mutuality or in terms of reinforcement. So do ray numbers of our vehicles through the law of correspondences, they connect us to a lot of things. For instance, let's just, if I go over here, okay, let's just look at this. Suppose you have a 4th ray mind. Now, that is considered to be the intuitive mind. But, it's easier for the 4th ray mind to develop the intuition than the 5th ray. The 5th ray mind, every mind can eventually develop the intuition, but the 4th ray, it's a natural. And why? Because it's directly connected with the 4th or Buddhic plane and with the 4th sub-level of the Buddhic plane, whereon the intuition finds its expression. So, the 5th ray mind is directly connected with the mental plane, so it's extremely intense mentality. The 1st ray mind, customarily found, is connected with the atomic plane, which is the very first of the Brahmic planes, where spiritual will is shown for the first time, and also with the will aspect of the monad. So I would say, what would I call it? Numerical affiliation. Numerical affiliation. And then I would draw all the lines and see what are the lines of flow that are possible. You know, just think about your ray chart and what plane or subplane it might connect you with. Think about your soul ray. See, eventually that soul ray, let's say a lot of us have the second ray soul, it's going to be connected with the monadic plane because it's the second ray, and with the great forms of Plato, the form building aspect is the second ray, and the 7 great forms are found on the monadic plane. Forms in the very, very highest sense of divine patterns and archetypes. So that's where the second ray will connect. It will also connect with the second subplane of all the other planes as well. And maybe for the second ray soul, response to group vibration will be easier than for the first ray soul. See, over here is what's called response to group vibration. That is the particular siddhi of the second subplane of the mental plane. So by numerical resonance, numerical affiliation, what did I say before? Numerical what? I forget. Anyway, the whole idea of numerical affiliation, we can see lines of reinforcement. And we can also find lines of contradiction. I know some people who have a tremendous first ray horoscope, but their soul ray is the second ray. And how are they going to handle that? With all of that ray 1 stuff coming through, inclining towards the expression of the will, but in fact, really, they are a love wisdom type. Well, maybe they need it. And maybe the astrology has been given to them so they can use it, you know. And that the same way too, with a first ray type in the soul, and they're given a very second ray horoscope with all the second ray factors emphasized. Because, you know, your horoscope does not tell you your soul ray. I want to be emphatic about that. You've really, I mean, some people try to theorize it and find a way that it does, but DK just contradicts that right away. He says, study the personality, study the soul, and determine the ray, and then go to the horoscope. So go into the Scorpio chapter right around 222 or 223, and he's going to say that, study the people, find out the ray, and then go into the horoscope. So the answer is yes. You know, just but it's different for everybody. You know what I mean? It's just, it depends on the ray makeup and what you are cultivating at any particular time. So that is the difference. But just make sure you have a good ray chart on somebody or on yourself, and then just start looking for the connections. You know, start looking for. I mean, you know, I have a lot of third ray in my system, so what am I going to look for? I'm going to look for the connection to the abstract mind. That's one of the factors that's really going to be prominent because of the third ray found in so many places, and maybe the active intelligence of the monad. So actually, I don't know if you're going to be at the conference, but we're going to review some of this material on the monad. That's going to be our first work. And we did that last year, and now we're going to review it, and then we'll get into some of the planetary chakras and all the rest of it. And one day, the Terra test will be resurrected, and it will help the more advanced students to think about their higher rays. And then we will see that most of what we've been dealing with are just the lower half of our ray structure, and the higher half of our ray structure, dealing with subrays of the soul, subrays of the triad, main rays of the triad, subray of the monad, main ray of the monad, all of that has not been discussed. Okay, now, Veronica. Okay, so is Alice Bailey's symbol on the blue books the triangle and the fleur-de-lis? It's actually, it's Lux, light. It means light. That's what I was told. It's an L with a U and an X, and it lux, and it means light. But of course, the third ray is connected with light, and so is the second ray. And interestingly, unfettered enlightenment is connected with the first ray. So there's different forms of light for every one of the rays. What is happening to the vegetable kingdom and to the devas that help build it with the GMO products? They have made hybrids mixed with that. Well, this is not good. And I'm no expert here, but it's people are playing God the way they did in old Atlantean times. Every once in a while, you see a movie come out about this, where they splice together a human and a cat, and it turns out to be some, wicked-looking creature with all kinds of distortions. Let's just say the fifth ray, not believing in God, usually, not believing in a divine plan. I think what was Stephen Hawking's last book, maybe published after he died or something. The name of the book, There Is No God. Okay, there is no God, so there are no laws you have to obey, and man is a law unto himself, so he can mix and mix up whatever he wants to. In the old days, they say that in Atlantis, they built special slave races who did not have, intellect much. They were just built, cloned up to serve humanity. That was against the law. There's so many things that experimenting humanity can do incorrectly. And when you start mixing the kingdoms, well, people like ourselves say, hey, hold on, because there's so many laws here that have to be obeyed, and we don't know what we're doing, and we're just playing with the forms that God never intended should see the light of day. So obviously, we need the presence of the masters and the higher initiates to inform us of the consequences of what we are doing in our happy experimentalism. Because of some lines you're just not supposed to cross. And people say, oh, well, then you're afraid to cross them. No, it's out of respect for what the divine plan may really be, and knowing that we know so little. So there are messes being made, and DK hints at it. He says there are some combinations extant at the moment which were never meant to be created. I've always felt that with plastics and things of that nature that we're into that kind of area. They don't decompose, and they stay around forever, and they're killing the animals. And I was talking to Philip Lindsay about this, and he was saying, well, there's other kinds of chemical combinations which just are not meant to be made. So fools rushing in again where angels fear to tread, I'm afraid. Okay, and Joe is there.
Michael,
Yes, dear, go ahead, Tuija.
yes, there is one aspect about this same thing, that the creator will create his karmic relationship to the creation. So that will in the future be the bond, whatever is not belonging to the law or to the plan and is out of the law, then that who creates it will have its burden.
Be burdened by it.
So
Well,
the creator has to
Mm.
creator has released then that's in some point anyway. So it is a whole limit of that if one is using law wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. I think, the further we go in occultism, the more cautious we are. We understand why a magician has to really be precise. One false move and you're dead. It's like that. He says many magicians have died by drowning. The Agnisurians have taken over, or the Agnisurians have left them entirely, and the cord had to be snapped. there's all kinds of ways of creating mistakes. So we just need at first to go along with very sound advice and not just say, I'm God, I can do whatever I want, you know. There's a respect that has to come in regarding the archetypes and the divine plan. And we'll know more about that if we proceed carefully. But this business of mixing the kingdoms, now, you know, now some people want to reinstitute dinosaur forms, or maybe a woolly mammoth or something. In other words, they want to take the DNA, they want to go backwards, and they want to rebuild those forms which died out through extinction as a natural process, and because their time had ended. Now, we can all see, we don't know whether they can be successful or what kind of inner psychic being they would call into those forms, but we just know it's against the progression of the plan. So, you know, but we have to educate people in terms of what archetypes are, what the divine plan is, and how they may be really playing with the whole process in a way that is very finely destructive of where the planet is supposed to go. And I think this is a big danger with the fifth ray, okay? Because rarely is there a respect for the deity as the lawgiver, and the desire to do experimental things is very strong. And in the age of Aquarius, we're going to have to deal with this. We're told the white magicians, whoever they are going to have to deal with the strictly mental magicians, the form producers who produce form simply because they are curious and want to know what might happen if I did that, you know. So we're going to have our hands full, and we have to have good reasons for what we say, and we have to be examples somehow of the kinds of energies we are talking about. And that's hard to be, but it's important. Anything else to you that you wanted to say? Maybe not. Okay. Okay. Now, other questions or thoughts?
Yes. I just said that I'm sorry I couldn't open my mic.
Oh,
But
okay. Yeah.
one little part of this was that's why the masters or the great advanced teachers, they don't manipulate anything, not even producing something so-called good things to happen, because it can turn the whole direction of the karmic situations to either delay or fasten too quickly, and then producing something which is not appropriate.
Yes, yeah. You know, manifestations, monstrosities. Can you imagine if we had a Tyrannosaurus Rex walking around these days? By the way, they discovered a really big one recently. And you know, it's just an anachronism. It's not meant to be. It's basically interfering with the thought process of the planetary logos. And we have to have more respect somehow. So this whole idea of respecting the creator, seeing the evidences of the plan, seeing the kind of development has happened over many, many years, this is really a requirement. Otherwise, we're just going to do things which are not really forgivable, and they will affect everybody in a very negative way. Hopefully we learn from Atlantis, you know, because they really played around a lot in Atlantis with those kinds of things, and it led to bad results. Sometimes, you know, some of you have seen the movie The Lord of the Rings, and Middle Earth, I guess Middle Earth is the astral plane somehow, and it showed us what can happen when you start playing with different types of beings, like the orcs, for instance. You know, you create monstrosities, Frankenstein's, ugliness, you know, you create that. Whereas the divine plan is inherently beautiful and becoming more beautiful all the time. Okay, anything else, friends? Anything else you want to, let's see, we had Helen, we talked about that. And,
Mary Cox has her hand up.
okay, thank you, BL. Okay, okay, now you're good, Mary, you can speak, yes.
Yes, I had a thought when you were talking about the plant kingdom. I have a friend who's an herbologist, and she talked about how the plants have a consciousness to assist humanity. And we've become so disconnected from it. When we grew our own food, the plants would produce what your body needed. So say you needed more potassium or vitamin D or whatever it was. The plant, because you were connected with it, you shared your waste with it, it would then in turn produce what you needed. And I thought that was an amazing fact.
It's a very interesting idea. These are the kinds of things that the new ecology, Master Moria talked about the fratricidal crowding in the big cities, and there's been some thought from him and from DK that humanity is spreading out over the planet and will become less urbanized. And therefore, I think, more producing certain foods that are needed locally. And then we'll have a chance to re-examine that. It sounds plausible, it sounds quite possible. And in the Bible, it tells us that the plants are not only our food, they are our medicine. So that, rather than the strictly mineral approach, which the what do they call allopathic medicine seems to encourage. I remember having an experience with a doctor. There were, I knew, and the people surrounding me knew, that I needed something that was not considered a high-level technical medicine. And we talked to the doctor about taking that, and she absolutely refused, because she says, you have here in these medicines such advanced technical mineral combinations, and she was totally entranced by the fifth ray sophistication of these allopathic medicines. And the thing that really would work and was connected with a more natural approach was completely discounted. But then, that is an attitude, and we managed somehow to get the right thing to me, and I recovered. So let's just say there are prejudices along the fifth ray line which will prevent the more natural integrated approach of which you are speaking. But that they will be worn away gradually during this more agrarian kind of distribution of humanity away from the fratricidal crowding within the cities. So very interesting idea there, Mary, and thank you for mentioning that.
Michael?
Yes, BL, yes.
I just wanted to mention something that has concerned me about this for a long time. Not that I know what to do with it, but my understanding is that these big seed companies are so into trying to get profits that they are basically neutering the seeds, so that people will have to, farmers will have to each year come buy their new seeds because they won't regenerate. And my God, what would happen if they did that? Because, then the other thing is, you plant a field with these new supposedly great seeds that cannot self-propagate, and the wind blows it into the farmer next to you and trashes his crop, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's absolutely frightening to me to think that they can mess at that level out of greed.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's a unique form of blindness, and it really is a whole Black Lodge business. and we've got to catch it right away. There's a lot of things we have to catch right away, because if humanity becomes too artificial, too superficial, looking for things that don't really count, like profits, power, egotism, all the rest of it, willing to sell the whole planet down the river just for a temporary expression of their instincts, we have the annihilation of humanity, basically, as a possibility. So this is one of the reasons why what DK said is that humanity will recognize that it itself cannot solve its problems. And I thought that was very interesting, because, you know, we absolutely need humanity's cooperation in all these things, except that this will be the real invocation of the hierarchy to enter into cooperation in the solution of these problems. Otherwise, there's just many ways to wipe out the human race, many ways. And I think Tuija and I have discussed this, and Tuija said, well, when you attack the food supply, that's foundational. You know, that can lead to disaster.
I
So
know it's
yeah,
horrible.
yeah,
But then I'm heartened when I hear about things like the seed vault that they have up in
yeah.
to Greenland or somewhere there in the north.
It's in North, the island,
Is it in
Norway,
Iceland or Greenland?
Spitzenberg, and it's Norway. Spitzenberg is one of the names of that place. Svalbard, Spitzenberg, an island belonging to Norway, about 80 degrees north, and that's where the seed vault is. Yeah, and you know, and of course, you would think that that really has to be well guarded somehow. Sometimes you kind of wonder, you know, who would plan an attack against that. And I just saw some articles on the seed vault up there, but it looked quite unprotected. It seems to go into a mountain, or seems to go underground, or something of that nature. We can only hope that a lot of deep thought has been gone into it, and that HMO is not there. Monsanto has not penetrated the doors. Let's hope. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's these are all things that disciples in the future will, and well, it's not really the future. It's now. You know, all of us, and in the reincarnated aspects of ourselves, will be dealing with these issues. Is there anybody else? Okay. And then if there isn't, and that would be okay. Tuija, would you like to deal with a little of the now, are you there, by the way, Tuija? Yeah.
Yes, I am. It is just again cutting so much. I was thinking if you
Yeah.
could do that.
Okay, well, it's just going to be simple. Okay, so we'll,
Yeah.
you know, because I think this morning already up north you had the triangles, didn't you? Broadcast.
We
I think.
did, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So this is the second. I've lost my time orientation because I'm in the United States now. 9 hours it'd be behind where Finland usually is, and you know, so I'm just lucky to be here. Okay. All right, friends. So let's just remind ourselves that DK tells us every day, you know, related to each other as we are now, and every day we wake up and before we do our meditation or group meditation, we rest back, and we can even do that right now, quietly in our chair or the bed, and closing our eyes, link up with our soul, and with me, says DK, with me, your friend. And it, you know, it looks something like that. At least we've characterized it that way. And the base of the triangle is on the higher mental plane, where DK works with the souls of his students, and the solar angel from the Buddhic plane and beyond projects its line of energy onto the higher mental plane, creating the egoic lotus, and then the anchored in our head center. So we just imagine that in relation to each one of us. That the soul stream can reach us, the master stream can reach us, and the color golden orange is projected. And we imagine that color completely suffusing the personality and especially the body. And we, as he says, we bathe in this color as we would bathe in the waters of the sea. So it's one way of imagining, soul infusion and being an outpost of the master's consciousness. And that color infuses us, especially in the physical etheric nature. A triangle hovers above the square. The symbol is the Masonic apron, really. The square with the triangle deeply plunged into the square. Soul infusion. This is what we're after, soul infusion. All of us. And we have our triangle or triangles with which we're working, and we imagine that as we think of our various triangles, we are all somewhat soul-infused personalities doing this. Pass it through your thought as you link up, spreading goodwill, which is love in action, and light, and eventually when we can handle it, the will to good, but right now, love and light. Linking us with our own little network. And we can, we go through all of those triangles when we do the actual broadcast, but right now we just think of the network in general, our own little network in general, suffused with goodwill and light. and connected with the worldwide network, getting ever stronger and covering more and more of the earth, especially etherically. A golden network of triangles, ultimately linked with Shambhala, where the three Buddhas of activity, who were three great planetary logoi in the previous solar system, these great supervising deities, they are the primary triangle among all the triangles. And they can use the triangles network in emergencies. Who knows when this has been done? It probably has been done. So the link is our own little network, the global network, and the three Buddhas. And it's almost as if, well, from one perspective, it's the Christ at the heart of each triangle. And from another perspective, it's Sanat Kumara. It's a living, divinely inspired network. And this work simply must go on, the Tibetan says, so to us, it's really real. And we think about our own little network, the global network, and the three Buddhas as we sound together the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Well, thank you, everybody, for thinking together, meditating together, Tomorrow morning, Tuija will be leading the broadcast. It's on the AM schedule for the reappearance of the Christ, 6 a.m. GMT. So maybe some of you can join us. It's really an important meditation, the reappearance of the Christ. It's really the most important thing, really. Forgetting the things which lie behind, I will strive towards my higher spiritual possibilities. I dedicate myself anew to the service of the coming one and will do all I can to prepare men's minds and hearts for that event. I have no other life intention. Okay. Thank you. And we'll, just continue on the morning schedule with Ask, and then we'll later figure out, I'm sure Tuija knows, but when we have to discontinue for a little while the Ask presentation because the conference will have taken over. And I'd love to see you there. We'd all love to see you there in person, getting into the mind of God. You know what I mean? Okay.
Michael, it is
Yes.
the 17th of April is the last triangle webinar.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's see if we can handle it that far. Okay. That'll be great. Thank you. All right. And that's it. And I'll send, once this is converted, I'll send it out to Joe and BL, and it should be up before long. And we'll just continue with our work. It's going to be interesting what we have yet to do. Yes, talking about the 600 billion life forms. And then we'll be getting into the different planetary centers and so forth. Now, if you're interested, a lot of this can be found in Esoteric Psychology. No, excuse me, in the Esoteric Astrology book. And there are videos of every page of the Esoteric Astrology book. So this has been thought through quite carefully, and now it's being thought through again by all of us quite carefully. So many blessings, lots of love, and we'll see you soon. See you soon. And let's see, how many hours will that be? I guess right now it's 1/9. Is it 10 o'clock in Finland? And so at 8 o'clock, so it'll be 10 hours from now that the broadcast on the reappearance of the Christ will begin. Meanwhile, okay, all the best to you, and hopefully see you at conference. Hopefully that will be possible for you. So bye-bye for right now.